Let me ask you a question. And it might sound a little strange at first.
Go for it.
What if I told you that your brain, the exact same organ that makes you procrastinate, the one that tells you to just sit on the couch and watch TV instead of studying, what if I told you it can actually be trained to crave doing hard things?
Well, that sounds like a complete paradox, right?
Yeah.
Because we are wired, biologically wired, to seek comfort.
Yeah.
We're wired to save energy.
Yeah.
So this idea that we can somehow hack that wiring to actually want difficulty, it sounds almost too good to be true.
It does. It really does. But that is exactly the promise we are going to explore today. So welcome back to the deep dive. This is actually a special episode we're doing for our friends over at Sunny English Bite.
Wait.
We know a lot of you listening are in the process of learning English, which is, and let's be honest about it, a very hard thing to do.
It's incredibly hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes focus, it takes consistency, and just a lot of brain power.
Exactly. So today, we aren't just here to give you a pep talk. We're not just going to say, try harder, or, oh, you need more discipline. We're going to try and unlock the hidden science of motivation. We're going to look at the actual biology inside your head and figure out how we can flip that switch so your brain starts to pursue a challenge instead of, running away from it.
And that's so important because usually when we fail at the hard thing, what do? We blame ourselves. We say, oh, I'm just lazy.
Oh, 100%.
Or I'm weak.
I do that all the time. If I plan to go to the gym and I just don't go, I don't think, oh, my biology got in my way. I think I'm a failure.
Right. And that is the first big twist we need to talk about today. That feeling, that resistance, that little voice telling you to sit on the couch, it's not a character flaw. Yeah. It is not because you're a bad person.
Okay.
It's biology. Oh. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do for, thousands and thousands of years. Seek comfort, avoid pain, and save energy.
So my brain is kind of sabotaging my big goals, but it thinks it's helping me survive.
Precisely. It's trying to keep you safe. But in our modern world, where we want to learn new languages or build a business or get fit,
right.
Well, that safety mechanism becomes a problem.
Right.
So our mission today is to understand that mechanism so we can almost dismantle it. We want to rewire the system.
I like the sound of that, rewiring the system. But, okay, before we get to the how, we have to understand the why. Why is that resistance so strong? Why does opening a textbook sometimes feel like actual physical pain?
It's not in your imagination. It really is.
Oh.
It's a real friction. And to understand it, we have to look at the neuroscience.
Okay.
So the brain is structured around two major systems that are driving this behavior. The first one is something we hear about all the time, but we often misunderstand it. It's the dopamine reward system.
Dopamine, yeah, the famous molecule. Most people, I think of it as the pleasure chemical. Like, you eat chocolate, you get a hit of dopamine, you check Instagram, you get dopamine.
That's the common understanding, but it's incomplete. And this little misunderstanding is actually why so many people struggle with motivation.
Really?
Yeah. The sources we looked at for this deep dive all point out a really crucial nuance. Dopamine is not really about the pleasure you get after you get a reward. It's the chemical of anticipation.
Anticipation.
Yeah.
It's about what I expect is going to happen.
Yes, exactly. It's the driving force of wanting. Let's use a classic example. Think about ordering a pizza.
Okay, I'm thinking about it. Makes me hungry.
When are you most excited? Is it when the pizza is actually, in your stomach? Or is it when you're on the app, looking at the menu, choosing your toppings, and then tracking the delivery driver on your phone?
Oh, it's the tracking, 100%. When I see that little car icon turn onto my street, that's the peak excitement. Sometimes by the time I actually finish eating, I just feel, full and a bit tired.
That is the dopamine system in action. Studies show that dopamine spikes more for the expectation of the reward than for actually getting the reward. It's this biological signal that's screaming, go get it, it's coming, move.
So my brain is just shouting, I want that, go get it now.
Yes. Now, apply that to the world we live in. We are surrounded, absolutely surrounded, by things that trigger an immediate anticipation of reward.
Yeah.
Netflix, social media, junk food. Your brain looks at your phone and says, hey, if you click this, you'll feel good in 1 second.
It's a guaranteed reward, and it's fast.
It is cheap dopamine. It requires zero effort. Now, compare that to studying English grammar.
Yeah, that is a very different story. If I look at a grammar book, my brain does not go, oh boy, excitement is coming in 1 second.
No, because the reward for studying is delayed. It's way off in the future.
Yeah.
You might not feel the benefit for weeks or months or even years. You could study today and not feel fluent until, what, 2027?
That is a long time to wait for a dopamine hit.
It's way too long. And the dopamine system is impatient. It's evolutionary. It wants the sure thing right now. So when you have a choice between guaranteed pleasure now, which is the phone, and maybe some benefit in a year, which is the study, well, the dopamine system is always going to push you toward the phone.
So it's not that I don't want to learn English, it's just that my brain wants the phone more, right, in that specific moment.
Correct. It's a battle of chemical signals. But that is only half the problem. That's system one, the desire for easy reward. We also have system two, which is actively fighting against the hard work. This involves a part of the brain called the amygdala.
The amygdala, I know that one. That's the fear center, right? Fight or flight.
Exactly. It's designed to detect threats. A tiger in the bushes.
Yeah.
A loud noise in the middle of the night.
But a textbook isn't a tiger. I don't get it. Why would my fear center care about my English homework?
And this is where it gets so fascinating. To your amygdala, difficulty is interpreted as a kind of threat. It's not a physical threat, but it's an energy threat.
An energy threat.
Yeah. Your brain consumes a massive amount of energy. Something like 20% of your body's calories go straight to your brain.
Wow.
And evolution taught us to conserve energy whenever possible because, food used to be scarce.
So when I try to do deep, focused work, which I know burns a lot of mental energy, my brain sees that as like a dangerous waste of resources.
Exactly. It sees pain, it sees struggle, and the amygdala triggers a stress response. It releases chemicals like norepinephrine and adrenaline, and it literally sends signals to your body that say, stop, this is hard, this hurts, go do something easier.
That explains that physical feeling of resistance. You know, when you sit down to write a report and you suddenly feel this powerful urge to go clean the kitchen or do the laundry.
Absolutely.
It's not that I suddenly love doing laundry. It's just that laundry is easier than thinking hard.
That is your amygdala trying to protect you from the pain of mental effort. It's trying to divert you to a task that is safe and routine. And this combination, the dopamine system pulling you toward cheap pleasure and the amygdala pushing you away from hard work, this creates something called limbic friction.
Limbic friction. That is a great term. It really feels like friction. It feels like I'm trying to push a heavy car with the brakes on.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The brakes are on. And what do most people do? They try to overcome this friction with pure willpower. They just grit their teeth and say, I am going to force myself to do this.
Yeah, that works for a little while, but usually I burn out after a few days. It's just exhausting.
Because willpower is a limited resource. You cannot fight your own biology 24 hours a day. You will lose. Your brain is stronger than your willpower.
Okay, that's a little depressing. If my biology is wired to make me lazy and my willpower is so limited, are we just doomed? Is there any way to actually win this fight?
We are definitely not doomed. In fact, understanding this biology is the key. It's the secret to winning. Because the brain is plastic.
Plastic? What do you mean it can change?
Yes. Neuroplasticity. The brain can literally rewire itself based on your actions. We can actually intervene in these systems. We can teach the dopamine system to start craving the hard work. And we can teach the amygdala to calm down during difficult tasks.
Okay, let's get into that. This is part 2 of our deep dive, the science of making hard things feel good. How is that even possible? How can struggle feel good?
Well, it starts with reframing how we even think about pleasure. We tend to think pleasure only comes from comfort, right? Lying in a soft bed, eating sweet food. That's what's called hedonic pleasure. But the research shows there's a totally different form of pleasure, a specific type of reward that comes directly from effort.
Oh, like the feeling after a really hard workout. You're sweaty, your muscles hurt, you're tired, but you feel amazing.
Exactly that feeling. That is not comfortable, but it is deeply, deeply satisfying. And the scientific reason for this, well, it involves several chemicals, but the key driver here is how we perceive progress.
Progress that triggers dopamine.
Yes, and this is the most important tool we have. Research clearly shows that dopamine levels increase when you perceive that you are making progress toward a goal, even if that progress is tiny.
Even tiny progress, like just learning one new word.
Even the smallest step. Your brain loves movement. It loves the sensation of moving toward a destination. In fact, some neuroscientists argue that the brain enjoys the pursuit, the feeling of moving forward, even more than actually reaching the goal itself.
Wow. This is a huge insight because usually we only celebrate the finish line. We think, I'll be happy when I speak perfect English.
Right, and that's a trap. It's a huge trap. If you wait until you're fluent to feel good, you're starving your brain of dopamine for years. You are making the entire journey a painful, dry desert with no water.
So we need to find water in the desert. We need to
Yeah.
manufacture little bits of dopamine along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to manufacture those progress points. So instead of a huge, scary goal like write a whole essay, you break it down. You set a tiny goal like write 3 sentences.
Write 3 sentences. That sounds almost too easy.
That's the whole point. When you write those 3 sentences, you can look at them and say, I did it. Your brain registers that as a win, and you get a little dopamine hit, a small feeling of satisfaction, because you can see forward motion.
I see. So you're basically feeding your brain these small snacks of dopamine to keep it moving forward instead of waiting for one giant meal at the very end.
That's a perfect analogy. You are keeping the engine fueled bit by bit.
But is it just about dopamine? You mentioned before that we can actually change the brain's structure.
Yes. And this is where we get into some heavier science, but I'll keep it simple. There's a part of the brain called the Anterior Midcingulate Cortex. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay, the Anterior Midcingulate Cortex. Let's call it the AMC. What does the AMC do?
Well, scientists are starting to see this area as the seat of willpower. Studies show that when people do things they don't want to do, like exercise when they feel tired or study when they feel bored, this part of their brain actually gets bigger. It grows.
It grows like a muscle.
Literally like a muscle.
Yeah.
And in people who are very disciplined or people who live very long, healthy lives, this area tends to be larger. But here's the catch. It only grows when you do things that feel difficult.
So if I do something easy, the AMC just stays the same size.
Yes. If you love chocolate, eating chocolate does not grow your willpower muscle. It has to be something that has that friction. So every single time you feel that resistance, that, I don't want to do this feeling, and you do it anyway, you are physically building that part of your brain.
That is incredibly motivating. So the pain isn't just meaningless suffering. The pain is literally the feeling of my brain getting stronger.
Exactly. And alongside this structural change, you're also getting a chemical upgrade. Doing hard things increases the levels of something called BDNF.
BDNF, what does that stand for?
It's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, but you can just think of it as fertilizer for the brain.
Fertilizer for the brain. I like that image a lot.
Imagine your brain as a garden, and you want to grow new plants, new memories, new skills, new English vocabulary. BDNF is the chemical that helps those neurons grow and connect with each other.
So when I challenge myself, when it feels hard, I'm basically sprinkling fertilizer on my brain garden.
Yes, you're creating the perfect environment for learning to happen. This is why things like exercise and difficult study are so good for us. They don't just teach us facts, they upgrade the hardware of the brain itself.
And I'm guessing we also get those endorphins you mentioned earlier?
Oh yeah. Endorphins are your body's natural painkillers. They're mood boosters. And you also release what are called stress adaptation hormones.
Stress adaptation, what does that mean?
It means your body learns how to handle stress better. It's like a vaccine. By voluntarily exposing yourself to the stress of hard work, you become more resilient to all the other stresses of life.
So, by doing the hard thing, I'm not just getting a task done. I am becoming a stronger, smarter, and calmer person.
That is the reality of it. It's a complete system upgrade.
Okay, I am sold. I am sold on the science. I want the BDNF, I want a bigger AMC, I want the dopamine, but I still have to get off the couch. I still have to actually start.
And that is always the hardest part.
So let's move to part 3, the action plan. The sources laid out 4 really concrete steps to train your brain. Where do we start?
Step 1 is all about your mindset. We need to reframe pain as reward.
Reframe pain as reward, that. It sounds a little bit like we're just tricking ourselves.
In a way we are, but it's a very effective trick. Usually when things get tough, what's your internal monologue? What are you saying to yourself?
I'm usually saying, oh, this is so hard, I hate this, why is this taking so long? Something like that.
Right. And that thought pattern, it just reinforces the amygdala's fear response. It tells your brain, this is bad. Stop what you're doing immediately. We have to swap that thought.
Swap it with what?
Instead of thinking, this is hard, Try thinking this is growth happening.
This is growth happening.
Or, this friction I'm feeling. That's my AMC getting bigger.
It reminds me of lifting weights at the gym. When your muscles start to burn, you don't panic and call an ambulance. You think, good, the burn means it's working.
Precisely. You associate that physical discomfort with a positive outcome. We need to do the exact same thing for mental work. When you're studying English and your brain feels tired and confused, don't think I'm stupid. Think, my brain is releasing BDNF right now. I am building new connections.
That shift is subtle, but I can see how powerful it would be. You're not fighting the feeling anymore. You're starting to welcome it.
You lean into the friction. Your brain responds very, very strongly to meaning. If a task feels meaningless and painful, you will quit. But if that same task has a purpose like growth, studies show the brain will actually release more dopamine to help you keep going.
Okay, step 1 is reframing. Stop complaining. Start growing. What's step 2?
Step 2 is a technique called the micro-deadline trick.
Micro deadlines. I'm guessing this helps with that limbic friction we talked about, the difficulty of just starting.
Yes. The hardest part of any car ride is getting the car moving from a dead stop. Once it's rolling, it's so much easier. The micro-deadline is how we get the car moving.
So how does it work?
You set a very short, non-negotiable deadline for focus work. I'm talking short. 10 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes to start.
Why so short?
Because a long stretch of time, like I'm going to study all Saturday afternoon, that looks terrifying to your brain. The amygdala looks at 4 hours of studying and it sees a massive energy threat. It just screams, no.
It looks like a desert of pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But 10 minutes. The brain says, okay, I can survive for 10 minutes. That's not a real threat. It just lowers the barrier to entry so much.
So you basically trick the amygdala into letting you start.
Yes. You sneak past the guard dog. But here's the secret sauce. Each small deadline creates a mini challenge, a little game.
Yeah.
You set a timer for 10 minutes to read 1 page of English text. When that timer goes off and you finish the page, what happens?
You feel good, you beat the clock, you finish the task, you won.
You won the game. And that triggers a small dopamine hit. And that little good feeling makes it easier to start the next 10-minute block. You're creating a chain of success.
I actually use this when I have to clean my house. I'll tell myself, I'm just going to clean for 10 minutes. And usually once I start, I end up cleaning for an hour.
That is the magic of it. Motivation so often comes after you start the action, not before. We think we need to feel motivated to start, but actually we need to start to feel motivated. The micro deadline forces you to start.
I love that. Motivation comes after action. We sit around waiting for this lightning bolt of inspiration, but we should just start moving. Okay, what's step 3?
Step 3 is social accountability.
Involving other people. This can be scary for some of us, especially the introverts.
It can be scary, but it is so biologically powerful. We are social animals. For thousands of years, our survival depended on being accepted by our tribe.
Yeah, if the tribe kicked you out, you were done for.
Exactly. So our brains are wired to care deeply, deeply about what other people think of us. We get a massive dopamine boost when we win praise and respect. And we feel a very real social pain when we let others down.
So we can use that fear of letting people down to our advantage.
Yes. Motivation doesn't just have to come from inside your own head. That's a really heavy burden to carry all by yourself. You can outsource some of your motivation to the tribe.
How would we do that practically?
You can use an accountability partner. Tell a friend, hey, I'm going to finish this English chapter by 2 o'clock. If I don't, I'll buy you a coffee.
Or maybe something even more painful, like, if I don't, I have to donate money to a political party I really hate.
Oh, that's extreme, but very effective.
Right.
That's called a commitment device. And suddenly the stakes are higher. Your brain says, whoa, we better do this, or we're going to lose money and look foolish.
It activates that sense of urgency.
One little warning on this, though. Be careful about just posting your goals on social media for everyone to see.
Really? I always thought telling everyone I'm going to run a marathon was a good thing.
Sometimes. But there's a psychological trap there. If you announce a big goal and everyone replies, wow, good for you, you're so amazing.
Yeah.
Your brain gets a premature dopamine hit.
Oh, so you get the reward before you even do the work.
Exactly. You feel like you already ran the marathon just because everyone congratulated you, and then your actual motivation to go out and run goes down. So it's better to have accountability for your actions, not just your goals. Don't say, I will run a marathon. Say to a friend, Did I run 5 miles today? Ask me at 6 p.m.
That's a really crucial distinction. Accountability for the process, not just the final outcome.
Okay.
Okay, what's the fourth step?
Step 4 is my favorite, and it's the one people skip the most. Celebrate the small wins.
We kind of touched on this with the progress points, but how do we actually do it? I mean, do we throw a party every time we read a page?
Not a party, no.
Mm.
But you need to actively reward yourself during the process. And the reward has to be immediate. Remember, the brain learns through association. If you do a hard math problem and immediately afterwards you criticize yourself and think, ugh, that took way too long, you are punishing the behavior. You are teaching your brain that math equals pain plus criticism.
So I'm literally training myself to hate it.
Yes, you need to flip it. You finish the problem, and immediately, within seconds, you need to self-generate a reward.
What kind of reward are we talking about?
It can be physical. Pump your fist, clap your hands, smile, say something out loud like, yes, I did it.
It sounds a bit silly, to be honest. Me sitting at my desk clapping for myself.
It might feel silly at first, but think about professional athletes. When a tennis player wins a tough point, what do?
They pump their fists. They shout, "Come on!"
Are they doing that just for the audience? Maybe a little, but mostly they're doing it for their own nervous system.
Really?
They are anchoring that success. They are spiking their own dopamine to keep their energy and focus up for the very next point.
Wow, so they're hacking their own biology in real time.
Exactly. You are teaching your brain. Effort equals reward. By clapping or smiling, you are releasing a small amount of positive chemicals right after the hard behavior.
So you're conditioning yourself, a bit like training a dog. Good boy, you wrote the email.
In a way, yes. You are reinforcing that neural pathway. If you write the email and then immediately take 3 seconds to smile and say, good job, you are making it just a little bit more likely that you'll write the next email.
That is such an important shift. I think I'm guilty of the, okay, what's next mentality. I finish one task and just immediately rush to the next one without even pausing.
Most high achievers are. They think stopping to celebrate is a waste of valuable time. But actually, skipping the celebration is what leads to burnout. You run out of fuel. The celebration is the refueling station.
So, okay, we have these 4 steps: reframing pain, micro deadlines, social accountability, and celebration. If we do these things consistently, what happens?
And that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, part 4, the habit loop. The goal of all of these steps, it isn't to use them forever. The goal is to build a habit.
Right. Because using willpower is exhausting. We want it to be automatic. We want to brush our teeth without having a big debate with ourselves about it every morning.
Exactly. We want to turn effort into a habit. And the science of habit formation, which has been popularized by researchers like James Clear and Charles Duhigg, describes a simple loop: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Can you walk us through that loop with a specific example? Let's stick with learning English since that's our focus today.
Sure. Let's build a study habit. First, you need the cue. This is the trigger. It should be specific. So maybe it's 8:00 a.m. and you pour your first cup of coffee. That's the signal.
Okay, 8:00 a.m., coffee in hand. Got it.
Second is the craving. This is where all our training kicks in. In the beginning, you won't crave studying. You might crave the feeling of having studied. But if you've been using our steps, celebrating those little wins, reframing the pain, your brain starts to expect that positive feeling. It starts to crave the dopamine hit of the micro win.
It expects the satisfaction.
Third, the response. This is the action. You open your book and study for 15 minutes. You keep it small so the amygdala doesn't panic.
Just 15 minutes.
And fourth, the reward. You finish. You close the book. You check off the item on your calendar. You pump your fist. You feel that wave of satisfaction.
And the loop is closed.
And the more you do it, the stronger that loop gets. Your brain starts to link the cue, the coffee, directly with the reward, the satisfaction. And eventually at 8 a.m., you'll feel a natural pull, a natural urge to study. Not because you're disciplined, but because your brain wants to close that loop and get the reward.
You essentially become addicted to the feeling of making progress.
In a healthy way, yes. The goal is to make the effort itself part of the reward phase. You start to love the process. You start to crave the hard thing because you know how good it makes you feel.
This is all really empowering. It just takes the mystery out of motivation. It's not some magic thing. It's a mechanism.
It's a machine. And you are the mechanic. You can tune it.
So let's wrap this up. We have covered a huge amount of ground today, from dopamine receptors to the anterior midcingulate cortex to the habit loop. If our listeners take away just a few key things from this, what should they be?
Okay, let's summarize the big ideas. First, just realize that your brain is wired for safety and efficiency. It avoids pain. So if you feel lazy, don't beat yourself up about it. It's just biology. Second, understand that you can retrain this system. Small wins and the feeling of progress are the fuel. They release dopamine, and that's what drives you forward.
Right.
Third, use the toolkit we talked about. Reframe pain as growth. Tell yourself your brain is getting stronger. Use micro deadlines to trick that fear center. Use social pressure. And please, please celebrate every tiny victory.
Yeah.
And finally, remember that the goal is to build a habit. You want to reach a point where doing the hard thing feels natural, not like a fight.
I really love that perspective. It changes the whole conversation from, oh, I have to do this to I get to do this.
That is the shift.
So here is our final provocative thought for you, the listener. The next time you are staring at a difficult task, whether it's a confusing English grammar rule, a blank page for an essay, or a heavy workout, don't ask yourself, why is this so hard? Why must I do this?
Instead, ask a different question. How can I make my brain want to do it?
The answer isn't in forcing yourself. It's not in more willpower. The answer is in the tiny wins. It's in the rewards you create. It's in the purpose you assign to the pain.
And it's in the science. You have the manual for your brain now. You just have to use it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this helps you tackle whatever mountain you're climbing today.
Stay curious.
Stay courageous. And keep loving hard thing.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, please do subscribe to Sunny English Bite.
Yes, and share this with one friend who you think needs a little motivation today. Help them hack their brain too. We'll see you next time.